Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lisa, if you're new here, and I competed in my first bodybuilding season last year, and I wanted to share with everyone the top 10, because there are definitely more, but top 10 things that I learned by going through a bodybuilding prep and competition that can actually be applied to real life and people who are just trying to reach their fitness goals, but not as intensely as like dealing with an entire bodybuilding situation. But there are so many things that can transfer over to real life. So I wanted to share those with you guys. So this video is just going to cover the top 10, but like I said, there really were so many more, but I wanted to narrow it down just to make it manageable, because like beyond 10 you may not care. I don't know. So anyway, number 10 is you can do hard things. I know it sounds so silly, but it's true. Pushing yourself through something that seems way more difficult than anything you've ever done, or something that the average person just doesn't do, really helps you realize that you can definitely do things that are hard. And if you've never pushed yourself to do something that is knowingly challenging, you really don't know what your full potential is. So you know, you don't have to do a bodybuilding show to do this, but what it does teach you is like you can push through things and you're stronger than you think. And I feel like a lot of us don't always take those on for like fear of failure or something like that, but we're way more capable than I think sometimes we give ourselves credit for. So that is why I wanted to have this one on this list, because you can definitely do some hard things. So don't sell yourself short. Think of rising to the challenge versus assuming that because it's hard you can't do it, right? Because you are definitely stronger than you think. Okay, so that's number 10. Now, number 9. Number 9 is everyone does have limits. So it's kind of like, I know I just said you can do hard things, but everyone has a limit. And this is something that was really hard for me to learn, because I like to think that I'm Superwoman and I can do it all. And I can handle a lot, right? And I can do a lot of hard stuff. But there are limits. No matter how good you are, no matter how organized you are, how strong you are, how dedicated you are human and you have limits, and that's okay. It doesn't make you less of a person to have limits. So even when you're pushing yourself, even when you're taking on more things, even if you know you're capable, there's only so much room on the plate and there are limits. So you have to keep that in mind. Okay, then I'm going to go into number 8 is there are phases to every journey and nothing is permanent. So when it comes to like health and fitness or weight loss, muscle gain, whatever your goals are, just realize that there are phases. And I see this a lot with weight loss, is that people just think like, I'm just trying to lose weight. And so they're going to be trying to lose weight for like a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is. When you look at a journey, there are phases of it. So, what I learned with looking at the bodybuilding thing was that we just didn't just jump right into prep for a show. We had to plan. I mean, I started in May of the previous year with getting on a bodybuilding type of exercise plan, doing a mini cut, then going to maintenance and trying to rebuild my calories back up so I could set myself up for a successful fat loss phase. Then we did a fat loss phase and I didn't compete until March. So I started that journey in May and I didn't compete until the next March. We started my fat loss phase in January. So it took me from May through December to go through the proper exercise, that I needed, to go through the proper metabolic preparation for what I needed, so I could get my calories up to a level where we could start fat loss from there without them getting drastically low, which would have been bad for my health, right? So then my fat loss phase is only from January to March, really. So it was only 3 months. It was a very specific and intense 3 months, but it was only 3 months. And then I would just maintained that because I had shows in March, April, and May. And then after May, it was reversing back up to a healthy, maintainable area. So it was basically a full year just to lose 20 pounds for these shows and then also regain some of that to be at a healthy level. So, if you're in a fat loss, your goal is fat loss, just realizing that your focus year round won't always be losing fat. Sometimes it is taking a step back to put yourself in a good position for the next phase of successful fat loss. But you can't stay in a fat loss phase forever because your body is smart and it will downregulate and it will slow down how it's burning calories. It will potentially start, metabolizing muscle instead of fat because it's trying, for our bodies want to survive. They don't care what we look like. So if we don't go at it with, phases and cycles, the body ends up adjusting because if you stay in a fat loss phase for too long, it thinks that it's in starvation mode. And then what does it do? It downregulates to keep you alive. So you don't want that. So knowing that there's phases to this entire process is really, really important. So that's number 8. Then I've got number 7 here, which means that there are more important things in life than just your physique. Yup. So going through what I went through with my prep, I had to make my physique goals sort of like a really top 2 or 3 priority during that time. But what happens is when you make a physique goal that high on your priority list, other things have to go down on the priority list, and they may not be the things that you want. So I know that I wasn't the best mom during that time. I know I wasn't the best spouse during that time. I know I wasn't the best employee at that time or boss at that time. So just know that getting to your physique might be a very high goal for you, but maybe it's not. And you need to realize that and know that it's okay for it to not be the top priority, because you can't have 5 number 1 priorities. As you move something up in priority, that means something else moves down, and it may not be what you want. So just realize that how you look may be important to you, but don't forget about the other things that are important, your career, your relationships, all of that, because what really contributes to your happiness? Are you going to be happy if you hit your, ideal body, but have no one to enjoy that with, have no social life, have no relationship, be a terrible parent? Think about that, and if it's really worth it. How enjoyable is that going to be if everything else around you is burning, right? So just kind of keep that in mind, that there's definitely more important things in life. No one ever wrote on a gravestone or talked about a funeral about how great this person's physique was, right? They talk about the kind of person that they were. So don't forget that. Okay. Number 6 is, I'm going to look at my notes because I didn't even put them in order. Number 6, your metabolism is not fixed. So I see this a lot where I will talk to, people in their 30s, they've had kids, they probably have an office job, something like that. And they're just like, well, I'm getting older and now my metabolism is slow. That is extremely common. But just because your metabolism gets slow doesn't mean it has to stay there. A metabolism is a fluid thing based on whatever is going on at the time. So, you know, a perfect example, you like look at yourself as a teenager, right? Like we all say, oh, you know, teenagers have this, like they can eat anything, blah, blah, blah. They have this amazing metabolism. Well, those teenagers grow up into adults like us, and depending on their lifestyle, metabolism may shift. Same thing, like your metabolism can slow down, but it can also speed up. So if you have found yourself with a slow metabolism, it doesn't have to stay that way. Just because you're older or just because you've had kids or whatever it is, doesn't mean that you're sentenced to the rest of your life having a slow metabolism and not being able to eat normal amounts of food without gaining weight. Like, the metabolism is something we can train. That's the beauty of this, is there's always a chance to make it better. So even if you find yourself in a place where you don't really want to be metabolically, you can improve it. So that is an awesome takeaway, because it gives you hope. You are not a victim of your age or anything like that. You have control over how your metabolism is functioning most of the time. All right, now that brings us to the top 5. So number 5, this is a big one. Drastic changes are not necessary to achieve your results. I see this. This is probably one of the most common misconceptions, is there's this idea out there that we have to slash our calories and eat nothing and do 1,000,000 hours of cardio and all this stuff just to lose a few pounds, when really it's not necessary to go that crazy. So you only need to make small tweaks. And I'm a huge believer of like the minimal effective dose. So if I can eat 200 calories less and stay on a nice, easy rate of loss of a half a pound to a pound a week, that is much more reasonable than pulling off immediately 1,000 calories. I may lose weight if I drop 1,000 calories, but I'm going to be crabby. I'm going to be hungry. I'm probably going to have poor performance, poor sleep. It's not necessary. So when you're looking at weight loss specifically, like, only take away the amount of calories needed to make a difference. And then when that stops working, you can make an adjustment from there, either with taking away a little bit more calories or increasing your output in terms of like steps or cardio or something like that. So only do the minimum amount needed to make a change, and then continue to do that until you stop seeing changes, and then you have to modify that from there. But you don't have to go through these huge extremes just to achieve your results. And really, it's the extremes that are not sustainable. So you could get to your results for sure with these extreme measures. You see it all the time. But most of the time, those results are not maintainable, because you can't maintain the things that you needed to do to get there. So I always say, what you had to do to lose the weight has to be something that you can continue doing if you want to maintain that weight loss. So just remember that. Try to do the least, and this is like where I'm giving you, try to do the least amount possible to get the most change. Don't overdo it, right? Like, only do what you have to. Why would you want to do more work for the same amount of money, right? Like, it's the same thing. You're going to get the same result, do the least amount of work necessary to get there. So definitely a huge takeaway. That brings me to number 4, which is you don't feel or function the best when you're extremely lean. Absolutely, 100%. I am not gonna lie. When you go to extreme levels of leanness, you are not the same person. Yeah, and I'm sure you guys have heard of brain fog. It's a thing. Like, you're not as sharp mentally. You have less energy. You have less willingness to put up with literally anything. But like, think of being so low energy that the idea, like, you will negotiate with yourself. Example, you have to pee. You will literally negotiate with yourself on how bad you have to pee versus taking the energy to get up and go. And you will be like, I can probably wait a few minutes longer until like your bladder's about to burst. And that's just an example, but like, you don't feel great when you are that lean. Like, you're so low energy. You're probably not sleeping particularly well, or you're sleeping a lot. You're probably crabby. You don't have any threshold for anything that's annoying. Like, everything sets you off. And it's probably not worth being that lean, because then you're just a bitch to everyone around you, or an asshole, or whatever you want to call it. But you don't function your best. And high level thinking, attention to detail, out the window. You can just forget it. So just remember that this uber lean body that maybe you think you want, like, you don't feel your best at it. So maybe it's not what you really want, because it's almost like you feel like a shell of a person. True story. Okay. Number 3. Real confidence, true confidence comes from within. I know this sounds so cheesy, but it has nothing to do with your physical appearance. It doesn't matter what you look like on the outside. If you don't have confidence in yourself, it's not going to matter. I see a lot of people that sort of will hold off and be like, well, I don't feel confident because I don't like how my body looks, and I don't feel sexy because I don't like how I look, and this and that. But the fact is, losing that 10 pounds, losing that 20 pounds, you may feel a little bit more confident in your clothes, but if you don't fix what's in here and like being confident in the person that you are, it's not gonna matter. It really isn't. Like, the outward appearance is only one thing, but there's actually a lot of people who lose confidence when they get, their goal body, because they realize that it didn't get them where they wanted to be. Like, they didn't feel how they thought they would. So just know that your confidence comes from you. You can be confident in any shape. So you don't have to wait until you hit your goal body to feel good about yourself and have confidence in who you are. All right, down to the last 2. Number 2 is you control more than you realize. This is so true. So, if you guys have followed me, you know that I have Hashimoto's. I went through a lot in my early 30s where all the symptoms started coming on at the same time, and I didn't have any answers, and I was starting to feel hopeless that maybe this was just like what it was like getting older and how I would feel for the rest of my life. And because I wasn't getting a lot of help from doctors or anything like that, I just remember being like, well, I guess this is just what it is. But I hated it. One day I was just like, you know what? I can't wait for the doctors or the medicine or whatever it is to get me out of this. Like, if this is how it's going to be for the rest of my life, I'm going to make damn sure that I make the best of the hand that I've been dealt. I want to know that I have done everything in my power to optimize whatever situation I'm dealing with. So that's the day, that's when I decided, like, that's it. You are going to get your shit together. You are going to take care of yourself. You are going to do the things that you don't think matter. You are going to go back to exercising. You are going to get your nutrition in order. You are going to get your shit together. And you know what? Fucking made a difference. I can't control that I have Hashimoto's. I can't control that one little bit. But I took control of what I could. I took control of my nutrition. I took control of my activity. I took control of my discipline. And it made a difference. I still have to fight things. I still deal with phases where my thyroid is not happy. For example, right now. But I know that I'm doing everything that I can. And it helps you deal with where you're at, knowing that, look, I may not be exactly in the situation that I want to be, but I am making the best of what that is. You don't have to be a victim. You can take control of your circumstances, 100% across the board. I took control of my life with this. I was, when I was in my prep, there were so many variables that I could control to move the needle. And I had to do that even with the conditions that I have. So I was still able to achieve my results by putting things in place and doing certain things. If I hadn't done those, I wouldn't have gotten those results. So I know that I have an impact. I have control. You have control. It may not be the path that you wanted. It may not be the circumstances that are ideal, but it doesn't mean that you don't have control. And by taking control, it gives you some accountability and some ownership of it. It's a terrible feeling to feel like you're just floundering and things are happening to you versus I'm going to do this despite that. I'm going to do this to feel better. I'm going to make this choice because I can make this choice. I'm not going to make this worse. I'm going to make it better than it currently is. Huge impact just on your entire outlook in life. So just know, no matter what you are dealing with, no matter what cards you have been dealt, no matter what circumstances you are in, there are things that you can do to take some control back, which 100% affects your outcomes. So just remember that. So now this brings us to the number one thing that I learned that can be applied to real life, which is you will not be happy once you achieve your goal body if you are not happy with yourself internally. There is nothing about, and this kind of relates to the confidence one, but you're never going to be happy with yourself just because you achieved a goal body. If you don't love yourself, if you don't love who you are, if you don't take steps to work on your relationship with yourself, this external thing doesn't matter. Being on this, well, I'm going to be happy when kind of thing is bullshit. First of all, it's almost like punishing yourself to be like, well, I'm not going to be happy until I get X, Y, and Z. That's some bullshit. Like, you are allowed to be happy no matter how you look, no matter what goals you have or haven't achieved. You are allowed to fucking be happy. So just remember that. Okay? It's really, I see it very common that, like, especially with women, but I think sometimes men too, it's the whole, and I did this, I'm not getting in a picture because I don't like how I look. Well, you know what? Your kids don't give a shit what you looked like, because in 50 years, when they want to look back at that trip with their parents, with mom, whatever, and you're not in that picture, do you think they would rather have you in that picture looking however you looked? Or do you think they would be like, well, that's fine. I don't have any pictures of my mom because she didn't like how she looked that day. They're going to want the pictures. Because they don't care how you look. They care about the memory, right? So, like, be happy with whatever circumstances you have. Figure out what makes you happy and you go do that. But losing that 10 pounds or fitting into that size, whatever, is not going to make you happy long term. It might make you happy in the moment, but if you haven't figured out everything else, you're still not going to be happy. So you got to do that internal work if you're looking for happiness. The external isn't going to give it to you, or it will be fleeting if it does. So that got a little ranty, but yeah, true story. All those things are true. So I hope this helps you guys. You don't have to go through an entire bodybuilding season to learn this. You can learn this just by watching this video. But all these things really apply to real life, and not just health and fitness goals, but a lot of career goals, education goals, like financial goals, anything. So comment below if any of this resonates with you. Share this with anyone that might be on a journey, that might need a little, mental reset on some of this. And if you are on a journey and you are looking to get this goal, just try and keep these things in mind. Like, it's not, the goal is great, right? But the real, life-changing part is the process, the steps you take to get that goal. That goal doesn't mean anything if it's handed to you overnight on a silver platter. What changes you is the process. Doing hard things, having discipline, holding yourself accountable, going forward when you have obstacles, overcoming those. Like, all of that is what builds your character. Your character isn't built by a scale weight or a size in your pants or how much weight is on a dumbbell. Your character is built along the way by going through the process. So just know that. All right, I'm gonna stop raging. But thank you for watching. Stay tuned. I'm gonna have more videos, hopefully more videos on this channel more often. So anyway, make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date on any of the new ones that I'm releasing. Take care, and don't forget, evolve your body, evolve your life.